My name's Steve Chafe. I'm an airline pilot for American Airlines.
All right. So, what brings you to the roof today?
So that's a great question. For a long time, we always have thoughts in our head about what's right and wrong in the world. And I think most people want to try and do what's right. And sometimes you don't quite know how or what to do. I saw a documentary that featured Pastor Brooks, and I remembered very distinctly, like, I think this person really has it figured out. The more I listened to him and the more I watched what he was doing and I looked at what was going on in the world and in our country, I just have become a very firm believer that yes, in fact, he has got the answer to the issues that he's trying to work on. So I contacted him, we started talking, and then he invited me to the roof, and I'm totally excited to be here.
So you're here.
Yeah.
You're here now. So how has your time been on the roof so far?
Well, there's stuff going on in the neighborhood, and it's a really distinct reality to see how things are here. Just listening to what's going on, a police scanner or police radio, I mean, they can't talk fast enough about the issues that are going on in the neighborhood here, and that kind of brings it home. When you watch it on the news, they're just taglines and they just roll right to the next story, and you don't really, even though you understand it on a certain level, you don't really understand it until you make friends with a pastor and you see that, I think he told me 3 or 4 children in his, he's done 3 or 4, he's done funerals almost every day. And that makes it hit home.
What do you hope to bring to the table?
I work in an industry I think that many young people would probably be interested in. And if I can help them see that and maybe help them get a vision of what they might do with their lives that is an alternative to some of the things that are happening here, that's what I hope to do.
What are the qualifications to becoming an airline pilot?
So that's a great question. The qualifications are quite high, to be honest with you. I spent 10 years in the military, active duty, flying C-130s. I flew several thousand hours of time and 10 years of experience all over the world, and that was the qualifications required to get hired at a major airline. The qualifications go up and down depending on, just the market forces. Right now there's a pilot shortage, so the qualification level has dropped, but you're still required to have 1,500 hours of flying. And as you know from your one flight, it's not cheap. It's $100 to $150 an hour at least. So you do the math on that, and it's a very expensive endeavor, which is why I chose the military route. What's really cool is, especially recently, there has been much more opportunities for young people, which I think is another reason why I come here to the roof almost with a message like, it's a lot easier than it used to be because of the pilot shortage. Our company, American, other companies, Delta, United, they have these cadet programs where a young person that wants to get involved, that they'll help them financially and make all that happen. So really what I think we can do is, if we can plant the seed in a young person's mind, maybe give them a little bit of help, maybe do some type of scholarship type things, get them connected, then it's really possible for anybody who wants to do it.
How can we get people with nothing to pay $150 for 1,000 flights?
Right. No, so the bill to become an airline pilot is over $100,000. And in previous times when the airlines weren't hiring pilots as much as they are, that would be something somebody would be responsible for on their own. But because there's such a shortage of pilots for the next several years, there's great opportunities to have those hours funded by scholarships and by grants and loans and relationships with the companies. The companies are actually paying people to do that so that they can come into our industry. So it's a wonderful time to do this.
We are on the south side of Chicago, fairly African-American community, minority community. What does that look like in the airline community?
So yeah, so it's very much not in the airline pilot community. I think the percentage is it's certainly not representative of the community at large. I think somewhere around 4 or 5% are African American. I think there's certainly a lot of barriers in my generation, and there continue to be. And not only are there barriers, but if you don't see somebody that looks like you doing a job, it's hard to visualize yourself there. So that's where I think we can really do some great things. We have Organization of Black Pilots chapter here in Chicago. We have members of those organizations in our airline. As I'm talking about, getting some kids up to O'Hare and maybe get to walk around and see airplanes and stuff, having those folks come and be representative, I think that just is going to strengthen the ability, because ultimately, there should be no barriers, certainly based on race. That's just that's not where we want to be, for sure. When you bring people from any different place and you bring them together, it's a sharing of culture and of mind. And what I think is a huge opportunity is to have, folks in my industry be exposed to folks from this community, and it's a two-way street. It's a symbiotic relationship. We get to learn about each other. We get to appreciate what goes on. And the next time, I'm in Wisconsin and I find out that a young child was shot in Chicago, and I have a picture in my head of that 9-year-old kid who asked me the question about flying, it brings it a lot closer to home. Specifically to Pastor Brooks, I honestly can't think in my mind of somebody who's had a more powerful impact on a community and a society. What a wonderful person. And I mean, thinking of him staying on this roof for 100 days, that's a huge sacrifice. I was in the military, I was in survival school, I went 6 days without food, and I lived in really crappy weather for 6 days or 8 days, etc. And he's out here not only for 100 days, but then now saying, I'm staying here indefinitely. So, I guess my pledge to you is I'm going to work as hard as I can to try and get you off this roof as quickly as possible. So.
Did he give you any good cheese while you've been up here?
No cheese yet.